Hello and welcome to the TalleyTalk Podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tally. We're a mental wellness startup specialising in anonymous group conversations called Tally Talks. Our weekly Tally Talks provide our members with a safe space to speak and listen in a discreet setting. This podcast will give listeners a feel for our weekly conversations while being anonymous. For this podcast, all participants have agreed to the recording while keeping their identity confidential. What you are about to listen to can be found sensitive and distressing. Please be advised to read the podcast description and respect the confidentiality and anonymity of the conversation. If you would like to attend a Tally Talk, please visit www.tallyapp.com and click Join a Tally Talk. Or if you would like to take part in the podcast, get in touch at hello@tallytalk.com. All links can be found in the bio. Thank you and enjoy.
Hi everyone and welcome to the TalleyTalk Podcast. I am the Tally moderator for today's conversation. Today we will be looking at self-love and discussing how we can love ourselves more. So today we'll be hosted by Raquel, and our co-hosts are Kevin and Jessica. And we also have two guests joining us today, which is Jade and Jed. So welcome all. Welcome. And it's really great to have you today. So before we start, we're just going to do a one-word check-in just to see how everyone's feeling. This is just one word to describe how you're feeling right now in this moment. And it doesn't have to be positive either. It can be any word. So I'll go first. I'm feeling really energized, actually.
I'm Raquel, and I am feeling intrigued by today's topic.
Hi, I'm Jed, and I'm actually really excited to be here.
Hey, I'm Kevin, and I'm really curious about today's topic.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I'm really excited about today.
Hi, I'm Jade, and I'm also excited.
Cool, thanks everyone. So it's good to hear that everyone's really excited for the topic and to get stuck into the conversation. And on that note, I will hand over to you, Raquel, who's our host.
Hi, everybody. So welcome to today's Tally Talk. The subject for today is going to be how can we love ourselves more? And I'm really excited to have two fantastic co-hosts with me, Kevin and Jessica, who are going to introduce themselves to you now and tell us a little bit about themselves.
Hey, my name is Kevin. I'm the founder of a group called the Living Full Project. Primarily, I am a men's coach, so I help to work with entrepreneurial men, ambitious men, just create bigger goals, find themselves a sense of direction and purpose, create more sort of intimate and loving relationships.
Great. We balance each other out well. So I'm a confidence and mindset coach, and I mainly work with women. So that's why we can flip on the other side. I help them find their inner power. And what I mean by that is the courage, confidence, and self-belief to live the life they want on their terms. So I love what I do and really excited to be here because this topic absolutely intrigues me.
Fantastic. I think that we are going to really cut past the superficial today and talk about the real in-depth stuff when it comes to self-love. So let's go straight in then. What do we really think self-love is compared to what it looks like sometimes to people? So Jessica, what is self-love really?
Self-love is really knowing and trusting yourself, and really giving yourself the space and time to be you on your terms, without the expectations of other people, without the expectations of things that we have to do in our lives. So self-love is all about you, and that's not selfish. And I'm sure we're going to cover that. But that's how I see it.
Definitely love the fact that you said that. I was nervous to hear. If self-love is selfish. So I'm glad that you said that already. Kevin, what is self-love to you?
Yeah, I'm probably going to start with what it's not. And it's not, well, it is partly some of these things, but what it definitely isn't is not just, long baths and fine dining and looking after yourself and that sort of thing on a superficial level. I think there's like Jessica said, the knowing is also understanding what it's not. And what I mean by that, the opposite of self-love, the things that when you have a full understanding and knowing of your patterns or your ego and how you might even sabotage yourself, all of that stuff are really useful. You can get to a point where you can invite those parts of yourself, what we call the shadow side, and then invite them in. And when you have that knowledge and understanding of those things, everything then can be used to create something that you want in favor of what it is that you want, a vision or something like that. So for me, that's what self-love is. From there, you can create, of course, your values and your boundaries. So it's a full understanding and self-awareness.
Fantastic. And I'm really glad that you guys have said what you said, because you've literally led me straight in to my next question. And just to let you know, audience guests here, please feel free to jump in with your own feelings on the topics as well. This is a safe space and you are welcome to share your feelings and opinions. So my next question is going to be, how do we move past the outward actions of supposed self-love? Like you said, Kevin, it's not just long baths, it's not just the fine dining. How do we move past those outward actions and really allow ourselves to move into introspective self-love?
I feel like that you have to find something you really enjoy to first get into self-love. So by finding something you really enjoy, you can then start doing that on a regular basis, which allows you to start enjoying being maybe by yourself or being with other social people. But that basically brings it on to actually becoming more loving of yourself.
I would say that learning to accept yourself is a big part of self-love. And part of that, I think, comes with age, knowing yourself, knowing what you like, what you dislike, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And also setting boundaries with people, saying, protecting your time. That is all self-love to me.
I think that's really good that you picked up on boundaries there, because that is so, so important. And I think it's a really good thing to kind of bring up as well, especially at the moment, because before, lockdown and all of that, I'm sure you'd be going out and you feel forced to kind of do the things, the fear of missing out. And now we've had all of this time, like this year to ourselves, to really just be with us. And I think there's so many learnings now that we can take from that for when we do come out of lockdown, and not feeling like we have to go out and do things all the time, or we have to phone a friend just because we told them we would if we're not in the mental headspace to do that. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because I actually think, especially over the next couple of months, there might be a little bit of a shift again, but we need to always come back to these values that we've learned about ourselves over the last year. But I'm not sure about anyone else's thoughts on that.
I feel like in lockdown, people have become really comfortable being in their own company. And I think that's really powerful, that when lockdown ends, this will still carry on. So people will have the mental strength to actually be by themselves if they want to be.
Yeah, definitely. I'd definitely echo that. There seems to be something about having all this time to yourself. For most of us, it's given us that introspection. And the thing I love about boundaries is, yes, they're a great thing to sort of, you really do need to know what to say no to. And that kind of keeps the path clear. That's what, for me, that's what knowing what your values are, what kind of works for you, what doesn't. Because there's a lot of stuff we can get so distracted, pre-lockdown, we're so busy and we can miss so much stuff. Whereas when you're sat there with yourself and fully understand yourself, then things are just naturally slow down over time. And now they have, it's like, okay, well, do I really want to work at that pace anymore? What was I doing before? Is that still the lifestyle for me? You're starting to ask those questions naturally. There's a kind of for me, it's twofold. There's the boundaries for others, which is really important, protecting our time, our space, our energy, but also the boundaries for ourselves. Like, come on, you said you were going to do that. That's kind of a little bit of discipline as well. That's done in a loving way.
Yeah, and I also think it's highlighted how much people really did work and how much maybe having some time to yourself to work on yourself can actually be beneficial. So when we do go back to normal life, people might not actually go back at 100 miles an hour because they realise that was actually what was ruining them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like a work-life balance is a really big thing for me. And I've done quite a lot of work on myself over the last 6 months. Going back to what Kevin said about values, what do I want from life? I also think that a big part of self-love is being kind to yourself when you're going through a rough patch, and maybe when something hasn't gone the way that you wanted it to, showing yourself that kindness and, not being your harshest critic. There's that saying, isn't there, that you wouldn't speak to your friends the way that you speak to yourself sometimes. So that's definitely something that I personally have been working on. When I mess up, just trying to pick myself up and not be so hard on myself.
What do you guys think have been the hardest boundaries for you to keep and maintain during the last year or in general?
That's a really good question. And in the last year, in terms of boundaries for me, and especially being a coach, is not spending too much time looking after everyone else that you don't spend enough time on yourself. And especially when we went into lockdown, it felt like everybody needed that level of support. And I was there putting kind of my arms around everyone, that I got to the point that I wasn't looking after myself and I had to step away. And I had to step away for a good couple of weeks to really think about what was going on in my life and how I could help myself first. And then I could come back to kind of my friends and my family to be able to support them as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because it can also consume you. And I found it might not be on the same scale, but I would constantly think about, as a personal trainer, about my job, about my clients. And one way I found to deal with it was anything that I thought of in my head, any ideas, I would have to write on paper so I knew it was out of my head. And by doing that, it almost gave me more thinking time for myself instead of just constantly thinking about work.
Yeah, I echo. That's really useful, actually, because I think for me, when I first, where were we? Lockdown 1, probably around this time, actually, or in April last year. I think one of the key things for me was, especially as a coach as well, you want to help everybody, and it's kind of, you're of that nature, but I found myself quite depleted real quickly. And I can remember saying, this is happening. I'm going to take the time to learn a new language. I'm going to start playing some more music and I didn't do any of that. In the end, I decided to come off social media I did a bit of a fast for about a month to 6 weeks. And just stayed there with my thoughts. Some days were great, some days weren't so great, and just using that time not judging myself and just taking that time. And when I felt ready, then I could interact with social media and then sort of check in with the family and other things as well. But for me, I really had to take that kind of time out, and just for me, because I felt like when I'm at it and 100%, then I think everyone benefits. And there's just, getting over that kind of, there's probably little bits of guilt to start with, but you soon realize what you're doing is not selfish in the slightest. It's actually of benefit to everybody.
I think one of my main boundaries over the last year has been not taking in too much news personally for my own mental health. That was one of the boundaries I set quite early on, because it can be overwhelming. And I found that the more I was watching it, the more it was making me feel down. So for me personally, that was a boundary that I set for myself. I just said, look, I'm not going to monitor these figures because it's bleak, right? It does have an impact on you emotionally, and it's draining. And then on a personal level, I've actually been dealing with a partner who has been struggling with alcohol dependency. So I've had to set some boundaries there, but while also trying to help him. I totally agree with what Kevin and Jessica said about, you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you can fit anyone else's when the plane's going down. So that definitely resonates with me.
I think making space for others has even like you guys, it's kind of overwhelmed me. And I feel like somehow in the whole lockdown period, especially because we suddenly weren't seeing people physically, we became really conscious of being there for others and contacting others and being in contact. And I felt like it was 24/7. My phone was going off. I was being messaged. I was having to do something for someone else. Work didn't seem to have a timeline, a switch off point anymore. Nothing seemed to actually have regular working hours anymore. And it became really unhealthy for me. And I just wasn't sleeping properly anymore and things like that. So for me, I had to really fight to create a sense of daily routine again for myself. And I kind of felt selfish doing it. I know I said I was going to bring that up. Is it selfish to practice self-love and self-care? But I felt selfish. I felt selfish saying, actually, no, I'm sorry, 10 o'clock in the night is not the time I want to hear about a presentation. Sorry. Does anyone else feel like that at any point?
There is actually quite a lot of power in routine. As humans, we love routine and habits, and it's a normality for us. So to be out of sync like we were and then thrown into a new routine that was overwhelming. And I mean, I remember I was still working in an organization at the start of lockdown, and we were having calls at 8 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. at night. Those were long, long days. And they were kind of factoring, well, you don't have your commute, so you can work longer. The business needs you. No. I know. So it was that added kind of stress where, as Raquel, you were talking about as well, like all your friends are contacting you. I had to delete House Party after 2 days because I couldn't deal with all the notifications.
I did that too.
Yeah. I'm not doing
no to it. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. I hear from you guys enough.
And then there
Zoom
was
is enough.
Scandal as well about them hacking other people's accounts through House Party. Do you remember that?
No. I think some people would still occasionally use it. But yeah, I just wanted to go back to the point about routine and just how important that is to us, but a healthy routine, a routine that suits us and it doesn't suit the people around us. It doesn't suit our work. I decided that when they were being this way, that I was going to take more time in my daytime. I'd spend an hour doing yoga and then I'd go for an hour walk. And I was like, well, if you're going to take this time away from me elsewhere, I'm giving this back to myself because I can't give you all of me. So yeah, definitely. I'm so glad you spoke about routine, because having a routine is great, but just to reinforce, it needs to be a healthy routine that suits you.
I definitely struggle with that sometimes, I think. But weirdly, at the beginning of lockdown, I did the complete opposite. Like I just knew straight away, as soon as we got into lockdown, I need to create this routine for myself. And I actually got a little bit obsessive with exercise, to the point where I think I was probably exercising a little bit too much as like a coping mechanism for the stress of the situation. But I do also love routine.
On your own, I was eating cake and ice cream because that's what made me feel better. So everyone was out running around exercising. I was like, no, I'm going to eat cake because I'm tired and I want cake. Comfort food.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's just as important. And this is something that I wanted to bring up today as well when I was thinking about what we were going to discuss, because I was chatting with one of my good friends earlier, and she's had a really kind of tough couple of weeks. There's been a lot of change for her, and change is hard for us, even though it's not only constant. As people, we still struggle with it. So she's changed flats, she's changing jobs, and sadly she lost a family friend yesterday, and she was really struggling, and she was trying to do work and she was trying to sort out her flat. And I messaged her earlier and I said, but what do you want to do? Not what are you obliged to do? What do you want to do? And she turned around to me, she said, I just want to sort out some flat stuff and go for a walk. And I said, just do that. And I think there's so much power in doing that. And if I'm going to stress anything today, is maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday, wake up and say to yourself, what do I want to do? Do I want to spend an hour in bed drinking a coffee watching TV? Do I want to get up straight away and exercise? So that goes back to what you were saying, Raquel. You wanted to do that. That's what kept you happy, and that's what kept you in that self-love space. So I'm glad you said that, because it is really dependent on different people, but it's what you want.
Let me ask the guys something. I feel like men seem to, when they need to look after their mental space, it always sounds like exercise is where they go, the gym or play footy or, play basketball. So when that's great. And I totally respect that because it's needed. Definitely. I need a personal trainer, clearly. I've just said how much ice cream and cake I ate. No, but when it comes to self-love, but on an emotional level, because it's great to do the exercise and it's great to take care of your food life and all of that. But on an emotional level, does that stuff help you process that? How do you love yourself on an emotional level as guys?
Sure, yeah. And I just wanted to speak to something as well. So when people either going to the gym or it could be eating or it could be, decorating or something like that. So sometimes we have to be really mindful of the fact that we could be using those things to almost numb or distract us from what it is that we're actually doing or what we're actually feeling inside, to try and, it's funny because it's a fine line because it can soon become like a disadvantage almost, because there's sometimes to sit in your feelings sometimes is a good thing, because you want to bring something else and just hang out with that tension. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but then the practices in and around that, some breath work, out in nature, some real basic stuff, being out in nature, breath work, walks. I know a lot of people struggle with meditation, but there's different types of meditation. It's not cross-legged, chanting if that's not the thing that you're used to doing, so it can be extremely active, and it's essentially, or it's what it does is anything that takes you away from the repetition of the thinking mind.
That's such a powerful thing that you said there. It's like people almost seem to have been using other forms of self-love to avoid actually dealing with what they really need to process to love themselves more. What are some of the things that people tend to do to try as avoidance tactics, and how do we recognize it when we're doing that? Because I think it's autopilot to use an avoidance tactic.
Yeah, most of the time, and I think it will just be about catching yourself. The other thing I wanted to add with this as well, which is I really wanted to stress this because it's still a little taboo or not as well received, is finding men's groups and being around other men and having these conversations outside of your your friend network, because men are quite like, it's banter or it's kind of mickey taking or whatever. But when you're in an environment where you're surrounded by other men that want nothing more than to see you win and be your best self, and that may come in the form of love, or that might come in like, come on, dude, you can do better than that. You're not, and with a bit of tough love almost, and accountability, then a men's group is an ideal thing to look into. I have one as well, and I've been part of one, and I would say it's transformed my life in a way, because you don't get that type of interaction in any other place. And a lot of guys play sports and things like that, but it's still not the same because there's an objective in place, which is something to do with winning a game or whatever. But this isn't anything. This is just about being supported by other men.
Just for anybody listening, where can they find those?
Well, there's a great international movement called Sacred Sons. There's the Good Man Project, the Mankind Project as well. Those three are probably the biggest ones, in a sense where they're of a scale where you can find local meetups in your area, or you can do it digitally as well.
Kevin, I absolutely love that. And it was just making me think about one of my friends who was in the Marines, and his whole quadrant was men. And I've never seen a community and a friendship as solid as they were before, because they'd been through so much together. They sat down after every tough deployment and really spoke about their feelings. And it was one of the most powerful friendships I think I've ever seen. And all of them as well were able to departmentalize what was going on. So then they could go back to their family and their friends and be their best selves because they were together and they could speak about it and they knew. So, I mean, I'm so happy to hear that there's other kind of communities like that for men.
Do you know what? I think that is so true. It's about being able to be vulnerable and have a space that you can be vulnerable and sit in your emotions and not be judged for it. But also, I'd like to say for anybody that's listening, as a woman, from my opinion, I don't see men being vulnerable in that way as weak. And I think sometimes I was talking to a friend the other day and he was just telling me about some personal issues that he was going through. And I was like, why haven't you told anybody this before? And he's at the lowest point he could be in before he's going to talk to me about it. And his outright response was, because I don't need to look weak. I'm a guy. And I know that, people expect me to be a certain way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, that energy has to go somewhere, right? And you don't, if you're an internalize it, then you're damaging yourself, or you may just blow up and combust. And you don't need to look too far as the state of the world that we're in. It's just the survival of the fittest and all these types of things. I wouldn't call it toxic masculine. I would just say it's wounded. It's just a wounded masculine energy, and this we've been conditioned so deeply to do that. And maybe we're at a place now that, when I think of my own father or whatever, he's just like, he will literally attack you if you if you question alludes to the fact that he's being vulnerable or something like that. And it's just the way he is. And it took me, my own personal journey is that I would shut down or run away or try to distance myself, disassociate. And yeah, it takes a lot of awareness. And for me, it's one of the bravest things. And for me, it's a human superpower, vulnerability. Yeah, and like Jessica said, what it does is actually bonds people. I'm not sure if you've had a difficult conversation with your partner and you've both been vulnerable. How sexy is that? I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think as men are more accepting of this and therefore more accepting of themselves, then we'll start seeing a kind of shift in society at large.
I'd like to take a moment here as we're halfway through to tell you a little about our sponsors. We're brought to you by Claudia Armani, health coach from the Health Gourmet. Claudia is an award-winning health coach with work featured in Vogue Japan and nominated in the UK's top 10 health coach blogs in both 2018 and 2019. Claudia has been generous enough to offer a 25% discount on all health coaching prices. All you have to do is quote TalleyTalk during the sign-up process at thehealthygourmet.co.uk to receive the 25% discount. We are also brought to you by Crystal Yoga. Crystal is a qualified yoga instructor with years of experience in one-to-one, group, and online classes specializing in vinyasa, hatha, and restorative yoga. See for yourself and take part in Talley's Instagram live classes with Crystal on Sundays, exclusively on the Talley Instagram profile.
From my point of view, when my partner shares how he's really feeling with me and tells me, when he's down or he's having a bad day, or not just that, but when you also get into the real nitty gritty of stuff, you come out, and after having those conversations, I feel closer to him because he's felt comfortable enough to share that with me. And he feels like he's in a space where he's comfortable enough to talk to someone about it. I just think sharing is caring. A problem shared is a problem halved. It's really important to talk and reach out to people if you need help. It's okay to ask for help.
And recognizing that is self-love, recognizing that asking for help from someone else is you taking care of yourself and enabling you to be there for others, because it actually opens up a space where I find that then they know that I'm not in a position to judge them because I've got my own problems going on. And also I'm willing to be there for them because why wouldn't I be? They've just been there for me.
Yeah, I'm also a big advocate for counselling and therapy. I did some counselling myself last summer, and having someone that doesn't know you, that has no judgment on you. They're completely impartial. They don't know anyone in your life. You can tell them exactly how you're feeling. That is also, I think, a really powerful thing. And you learn a lot about yourself through therapy. And, you might not meet the right therapist on your first try. You might have to experiment with a couple of people. And if you're a man, you might not feel comfortable talking to a woman, or vice versa. But I think therapy is definitely a form of self-love.
100%.
Agree. I was just going to say, from, a coaching perspective as well. I mean, us coaches generally have coaches as well, because that level of awareness and growth, that is a lifelong thing. We don't just suddenly wake up one day and know it all and decide we don't want to grow anymore or know ourselves better. That is kind of the beauty of life. Oh gosh, that sounds so dramatic, but it almost is, that we continue learning and growing and understanding ourselves better and better and knowing what we want.
Accountability is really important.
It's something, Jed, you touched on earlier, which was about being in groups and actually sharing. And it's funny because the more we share, the more we realize actually we're not that unique in a sense of that unique or special with our problems. Everybody has their own challenges and whatever, but they are quite similar. And I think the reason why that is so important is because it's not just a bonding tool. It can actually make you relax a little and think, okay, well, this is more, it's a wider spread thing than I first thought, because when we keep it local, we keep it into ourselves and we just ruminate with it in our mind, that's when it becomes a serious issue. And especially for men, I don't know what the stats are, but one of the biggest killers of men under 45 is suicide, so it's a real thing. And the mental health side of things is a lot of that is not being able to, or feeling safe enough to speak. There's a lot of times of people come to me and say, oh God, I feel so much better just being able to say this. I've never said this to anyone. And this, we're just in the kind of getting to know each other stage.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you there. And actually, Kevin, I had a question for you just as you were talking. How can we get our kind of males, friends, colleagues talking and having these really valuable, important conversations?
Yeah, sure. The thing is, I think the sharing of vulnerability is quite alien to most people. It can be very difficult. And I think the worst thing that you can do, what's up? What's wrong? You never talk. There's something on your mind, I can tell. And that kind of stuff just has the opposite effect. And I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone that's no surprise to anybody. I think it's about having a safe environment. And also with me, when you see some of my content is coming from my personal experiences, or I'm speaking to the person where I feel, you can relate. So it's interesting because I've tried different strategies to try, get more clients and this, that, and the other. And going after clients and reaching out to them and stuff really doesn't work in my field. It does in others because I've done other things before, but it doesn't work in with men. You literally just, hey, I'm here. Just to let you know, I'm just to remind you I'm here, and that's it. And then things started dropping in. And it was also the same. I have about 5 or 6 close friends, and I can see there's one in particular I can think of who's had a tough time of it, had a couple of accidents where there's been fatalities in it, and he survived both of them, but the trauma from that. And again, he slowly, it's just about letting him know that I'm there, that, if you want to talk. And every now and again, he'll just come up, ask me a question or, ask me about a certain book that he's reading or whatever. And it's about letting that person know that you're a safe space for them.
I think that whole checking in side of things, I'm obviously not a guy, but I'm just going off of how generally those conversations come up between myself and my male friends, or actually just my friends in general. I have a habit of messaging them out of the blue. Hey, what's up? How's everything going? Just checking in. No pressure, not asking them, tell me all your problems. Just, hey, checking in. How's life? Oh, I saw you've been doing this. And I think as women, we're really good at doing that with each other because we're really good at reading each other's emotions. I think a lot more openly than we are at reading guides. So it almost has to be a verbal check-in of what's good with you kind of thing. But I might be wrong here. Kevin, am I wrong?
No, not at all. I think it's just, like you say, it's just that. It's just showing them, hey, just that work, that goes a long, long way. I'm just checking in just to see if everything's all right. That really is it. And then at some point, if there is something that's consistently bothering them and you're that consistent presence by checking in, then at some point, because going back to my friend, me doing that for him has been a kind of a 2-year thing. It's not been like, every now and again, maybe once a month or even twice a month over the last 2 years. And now it's kind of, we've got to a place where we have lengthy conversations about things.
So I don't know how guys feel about this and ladies as well. I am really, really bad when it comes to self-love with sitting in my emotion. So I will know that there is a problem that I need to address. And my go-to response will be, well, just carry on and just keep going and do all of the kind of outward stuff. So I'll go and eat some cake and I will, Amazon shop or just go online and go online shopping, which is really, really bad. And I'll do all of these things to kind of distract myself. I'll distract myself with work, with my kids and whatever. Then I'll tell everyone, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, look how much I've achieved. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so I tell everyone that everything is good. And then just in the background somewhere, there's an emotion that I'm really not dealing with, but outwardly everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're taking such good care of yourself. Does anyone else do that? And when you're doing that, what is it that pulls you out?
I think that journaling can really help with that, because I used to be like that, but I'm definitely learning to act on my emotions a little bit more. I'm not talking about if I'm angry at someone, but if someone's made me upset, then I'll think about, okay, well, how do I approach that situation with them next time so that they know the reason why I was upset, and B, I want you to show me enough respect that you don't upset me in that way again. That's just as an example. But I've found that journaling really helps with that, checking in with yourself. How are you feeling? And little prompts, little questions to ask yourself. Yeah, I would definitely recommend journaling.
I think that's a really good one, because it literally sticks your emotion right in front of you, right there and then. And that is something that I personally struggle with, seeing how I feel and being okay with that feeling. Because if it's a negative, it's always a negative feeling that I don't want to sit in. Nobody doesn't want to sit in a happy feeling. When it is that negative emotion, though, I know that the only way to process it is to be in it. And like you said, maybe journaling is one of those techniques that we need to maybe think about using, because then I have to see it, I have to know it, and I have to be in it.
Yeah, writing it down brings it to your attention, and then you can sort of analyse, okay, well, why am I feeling like this? Is there anything I can do about it? Or is it something that's out of my control? And in that case, maybe I need to focus my energy somewhere else.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said about the self-soothing. If I can catch myself self-soothing and I think, okay, what is it I'm trying to avoid? And then I notice the negative emotion and find out what that is. I may not want to face it. And journaling definitely works. I definitely echo that as well. It's fantastic. But also I tell myself that the negative emotion has a message for me, because I'm going to have to sit with this tension and hold on to this tension. And I can resolve it in one or two ways, in a way that kind of probably doesn't serve me, i.e. continuing to self-soothe or eat more or do something that isn't actually productive, or hold on and let the message come and then resolve it in a way that is going to serve me.
Yeah, I think that's so important, the idea of sitting with the emotions. I can completely relate to this. And at the start of the year, I'm going to be really honest here, I got massively addicted to Pokemon Go again. Who thought it's still around, hey? I know. And there was so much going on in my life. I've got my own business. I was trying to get like another job for an income, and there was just so much going on that I just didn't want to address any of it. And Pokemon Go became my comfort blanket. And I spent
distraction.
Honestly, I spent so much time in that game. I'm like level 30 now and I've only had it a couple of months. It's just insane. So, distractions can come from everywhere. But I went on my daily walk and I was playing Pokemon Go and my phone was about to die. And I'd only charged it like an hour earlier. And I had this moment where I was like, what am I doing? I'm not doing the things that I need to do with my business. I'm not trying to get some income. I'm just playing Pokemon Go all the time. And I think it actually came to a head where something else in my life bothered me and I just completely lost it. I had almost like I was crying and all of that. And sometimes you've got to have that breakdown to have a breakthrough. And it was after that I was like, right, okay, what the hell is going on? Why are you playing Pokemon Go so much? Why are you getting so upset over silly things? And then I sat down with myself and I was like, what is going on? And really thought about it deeply and thought about the actions that I needed to take to get myself out of that. So creating daily habits again, finding things that made me happy. So like putting on some music and having a dance around my room or whatever that is.
Oh my God, dancing.
Yes.
It's so good for the soul.
Isn't
and
it?
You feel so good afterwards. I love doing that. That's one of the things I found that I also love in lockdown is putting on loud music, the song that I know, singing and dancing around my living room. I love it. It makes me so happy.
But it's those things, but it's all personal to us. It's finding those little things that do kind of light you up and make you feel good. We've all got them. And it's just putting those kind of things back into our day to give us that kind of energy and that positivity that we need to be able to then kind of move forward. So yeah, I've let you in on a big secret there about my Pokemon Go addiction.
I feel closer to you now, Jessica.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, I did a similar thing, but it wasn't with Pokemon. It was obviously with like my online shopping thing. But also I got really into, like, I decided to catch up on every kind of TV series that I hadn't watched in a while. And then I just started binge watching everything.
That's got to be a standard for anyone, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because that is so important. And that isn't self-love, being busy all the time because you feel like you have to fill every moment of every day when you're probably reaching breaking point. It's okay to watch TV. It's okay to binge watch something. And that kind of goes back to my point earlier about, sometimes you just got to wake up and do exactly what you want because, you need to feed yourself and feed your soul of what you want to do today. That's fine. Watch Desperate Housewives. Watch it from the whole series all the way through. You got to do you.
How did you know? How did you know it was Desperate Housewives?
Was it actually? No.
I never saw the end. I never knew how it finished.
Oh,
so
what a great series.
That's so weird. Something in my head just went, Desperate Housewives. I don't know why. There you go. It's my intuition kicking in.
I had a day the other day because I'm one of those people that I'm constantly on the go, constantly thinking like, what can I do to, what can I do around the house? What can I do for work? What can I do for my friends, for my family? And I had a day the other day where I don't drink very much, but I had a few drinks on the Saturday night. And on the Sunday, I didn't put an alarm on. I didn't get dressed. I wore my pajamas all day and I sat in bed all day watching TV, eating crap food. And I felt amazing because I never do that. And for me, I felt like that was a real act of self-love. That was like,
yes,
doing what Jessica said. I need to do this today. I don't want to leave my bed and I'm not going to feel guilty about it because I feel like that's what I need to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
I think today we've really touched on some really good different levels of self-love. It's been You know, there's the simple things like just doing what you feel like doing, sitting in bed and eating whatever you want to eat, or just not doing anything, or taking a walk. And, you know, and then there's the deeper levels of it, because there are so many levels to this topic. And then there's the more vulnerable side of self-love. And I think what I've learned most of all from tonight's conversation has been like creating that space for all of those levels of love for myself, and that I don't need to feel guilty about doing any of those things. What have you guys felt has been most highlighted during this conversation?
I really like the fact that we've touched on what was it that Kevin said? Toxic masculinity, but like broken masculinity, because I think it's really important for men to know that they are not seen as weak for expressing their emotions and reaching out for help, because as I think it was what Raquel said, as women, we're quite good at that. We're quite good at, you know, reading our friends and family's emotions. But I do think that's a big thing for men. And I think it is a generational thing, but also it's definitely something that is getting better the more we talk about it, and the more that people feel like they can share and they're not going to be judged for it, the more people will share.
I think for me, in a roundabout way, I don't think the word had been said, but I think it kept coming through for me, and the theme was compassion. Like having compassion for yourself and thinking, oh, look, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? It's whatever you're doing right now is just do what you need to do in order to sort of like, you know, get through the day or whatever it is, or whatever's best for you at that time in that moment, do that.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think it's going back to that point that we are different, but also we go through the same things, and it's all perfectly normal. You know, we've got to lean into the people around us and also reach out to the people as well. And that's just as important.
So I'm going to round it up tonight by saying, self-love, how do we love ourselves better? Have compassion for ourselves. Create a space where that is yours to do what you need to do, whether it's the little thing or the big thing. It's the things will lead into each other eventually, and you'll get into deeper levels of it. And it's okay to ask for help from others, because that's just as important. Thank you guys so much, because I think tonight has been really eye-opening. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing, especially Pokemon, because that was brilliant.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
It's been really
enjoyed
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely loved it. It's been great.
Thank you.
Wow, thanks everyone. What an amazing conversation. I think a lot of people listening will be able to take a lot away from this. And I haven't stopped smiling. It's just like, thank you so much for all being so open. Really great. So that being said, I think if we do a checkout, similar to the beginning, just one word, explaining how we're all feeling right now.
I'm feeling free.
I'm feeling really chilled.
I think mine would be content.
I think mine's too, actually. I don't know, calm and love. I feel quite warm.
Right. But yeah, thank you everyone so much for today. It was absolutely fantastic. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your evening and do something that you want to do.
Thank you for listening to the TalleyTalk Podcast. Remember to subscribe to our channel and be the first to access our weekly episodes. If you would like to leave us a comment, then please email at hello@tallytalk.com. We would love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. For all other inquiries, please visit www.tallyApp.com. Thank you and see you next time.